prepare yourself. Get your barf bag ready. In all the 7 years, if this chalkboard was here, this story would have to be right on this chalkboard. This issue is all about teachers changing little students on the bathroom floor when there's changing areas. Can you just think about this? Think about this. You're going to the bathroom. As a teacher, you're going to the bathroom to find out what's going on. And then you see a staff member changing a diaper on the floor. And so you try to be like, excuse me. And then you have a horrific face, a horrific mind to take a picture, share it on social media, and go, oh, what the hell happened? Well, Nancy Vera did not like that. And as you're about to see, she was pretty pissed. She was pissed about the whole thing. Here's Michael Gibson.
The parents and the teachers are fearful that if they bring this up, they will be terminated or disciplined.
Today, that was Becky Moeller, who was one of a number of people who showed up for this news conference at the AFT Teachers Union Hall. Moeller is a self-described community activist who says this is what she was told by teachers in one of CCISD's 31 pre-K programs.
And they were new employees, and they were appalled that they were changing the kids on the bathroom floors, on the naked floors, changing their diapers. They don't have changing tables. It's unsafe. They don't have good disposal things. It's not safe.
CCISD has compromised the health and safety of the very students with whom they are entrusted.
Nancy Vera heads the local teachers union and says she hasn't gotten any answers from CCISD officials or board members on this issue.
This is unacceptable, and this is a health hazard for our entire community.
We asked CCISD about the allegations and did get answers. In this statement, the district says it's not received any parent concerns on this topic this school year. We were also told that changing stations are designed for younger children and may present a safety hazard. District officials say children are assisted while standing.
What about the protective equipment for the children? For the teachers and the paraprofessionals?
CCISD's statement also included a call for any staff members needing additional equipment to speak with their principals. However, Michael Gibson, 3 News.
So after watching this, you may ask yourself, do we need to raise common sense? You bet your fucking ass we can. Don't be doing that crap. If you can't find a changing station, find a different bathroom. Don't be going all Plan Z and saying, oh, there's no changing station. Use the floor. Disgusting, nasty, no covering. None of that. Those teachers that did that, they need to be fired. And what about the superintendent? If the superintendent did not know about this, or came forward the next meeting and said, you know what, we need to terminate these teachers, retrain these we need to suspend these employees, or retrain these or suspend these employees, retrain them, so this doesn't happen again. Exactly. If we suspend the employees, they'll learn, because that's very disgusting and unhealthy in the community. It's one of the reasons why I hated CCISD years ago, and I hate CCISD today. You don't change your child on a filthy floor. The body's gonna get all dirty, the diaper's gonna get all dirty. Dirt. That's the whole thing. Like Michelle says, that bad. I can't hear you. That bad. I gotta tell you, if Danny Tanner was still alive, he looked at this and go, you being shot. Like, my car, my kitchen, my dinner. Even like that Fuller House episode. my car, my kitchen, my dinner, my little baby. But this is no laughing matter. I'm glad someone's stepping forward to talk about this. And I'll tell you, if it ever happened to me, if it happened to my nephew and I heard about it, I would march down to CCIC and say, hey, what the hell's wrong with you? Why would you even do that? Teachers would be like, well, we didn't have enough room we didn't know what else to do. You didn't know what else to do. Well, get them a blanket. Put the blanket on the floor. Here's what you do. Get a little blanket. Put the blanket on the floor. Put the baby on the blanket. Then you change the diaper. With all the supplies needed. It's basic common sense analogy. Get the blanket. The blanket is the key. The blanket is safe, and the blanket is the healthiest. That's the blanket method. Alright, we're continuing our series on dishonesty in America, where we're continuing all about lying. So, we're going to talk about why kids lie, why parents lie, and why school districts lie. Coming up, we're going to focus in on Susan Smith and the parents of baby Sabrina. Stay with us. Tonight, we're continuing our series Dishonesty in America. A look at why people lie, cheat, and steal the things that they wanted. Yesterday, we focused in on lying. We're continuing our lie by looking into with parents and the kids. We're going to focus on baby Sabrina, which we'll get on we're going to focus on Susan Smith, which we'll get to in just a minute. But I want to deal with the fact of, but what I want to do for the next few seconds is talk about why kids lie. He's asking the simple questions. Why students lie, why kids lie. Students may lie for a variety of reasons, including to test the limits. Children may lie to test ideas, to gain approval, may lie to make themselves seem more impressive to peers, to avoid punishment, to recover up mistakes, to control situations, to create a false image, to cope with trauma, deal with stress, to avoid conflict, and to get attention. If you're dealing with a lying student, and this is for you teachers out there, you're dealing with this, have some conversations about lying, telling the truth with your children, help your child avoid situations where they feel they need to lie, praise your child for owning up to doing something wrong, be a role model for telling the truth, use a joke to encourage your child to own up to a lie, meet with a student in private, help her understand the consequences of lying, help her understand that lying does not make a problem go away, and let her know that she lies frequently. You and her classmates won't know when she's telling them the truth. Why do children start to lie? Well, usually they want to take control of the situation by changing the story so that it works better for them. Because they won't be telling a lie to cover a mistake by getting in trouble. They may also tell lies when they're feeling stressed to avoid conflict or want attention. So that's to where students and kids lie. Now, the biggest question is, why do parents lie? Giving a false answer is an attempt to stop a child's line of questioning. Parents lie to them to preserve their childhood traditions. Many caregivers pass along traditions to their kids that they were given by their own family, such as believing in Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, or Tooth Fairy. It's never okay to do this. Now, how do you deal with a lying parent? Don't be complimental. Just address the issue calmly. Don't call them a liar, but you could ask them if it's true and it doesn't seem right to you. They may have a change of heart, or they may just double down. Try to reason them and get them to explain what they're telling you, and it could be possible. If a parent lies, then what can happen is it can lead to delinquent, aggressive, antisocial behavior as they grow up with the child. In John Benet Ramsey's case, the parents were questioned. They had nothing to do with this. But we're getting way off subject here because the only reason we're focusing on that case was because both Patsy and John took lie detector tests and they passed. In the case of baby Sabrina, it was very similar to what happened. So therefore, when you look at situations where polygraph is necessary, the polygraph often tells the truth. And sometimes it can lead to, and drugs can sometimes have an effect on the lie detector test. That's what I'm focusing right now. If you ever watch a Steve Wilkos show, you know people are finding ways to beat the polygraph tests. They just look up on the internet going on, how do we beat lie detector test? And they just look up these questions. But the drugs that people use, a person's using drugs, that can be a very serious issue when you're looking at something like this. The drugs you use to beat the polygraph, beta blockers, low blood pressure, mild sedatives, barbiturates, and major sedatives. The drugs that can affect a polygraph test, like crack cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, drug tests can pick that up. That's why these tests cannot be conclusive, because the tester is taking the drugs. The testee actually is taking the drugs. So if you're going on a Steve Wilkos show and they're telling you do not do drugs, but you do drugs anyway, it's going to come back on the test saying that you did this, you did that. You may sit there covered up and say, well, that never happened. You sit there lying in someone's face about it. It just never ends. It probably never ends. When we return, was Susan Smith lying, or was she telling the truth about her kids? Then later on, baby Sabrina. Were the parents lying or telling the truth? You be the judge. And then later on, more principal's office clips about people. And then later on, a principal's office clip about a student lying about mashed potatoes ending up on the wall. Stay with us. If you just joined us, we're continuing our series, Dishonesty in America. A look at how people lie, cheat, and steal. It's one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not lie. Lying is one of the biggest issues ever. The way people can tell your lies if your lips are moving. We're not going to take you to Susan Smith. She was the one who years ago was arrested for the murder of her children. But did she lie in order to cover up what had happened? You're about to hear what the police have to say. And was she issued a polygraph test? Here's Don Quinones.
We've had people call in from all over that have been very moved and stated they knew where they were the day that the President Kennedy was shot. They knew where they were the day that Challenger blew up, and they will never forget the day of the announcement of these two children.
Have you cried over this case?
Yes.
Howard Wells and Robert Stewart solved the mystery that for 9 days shocked us all. It was a case of their careers, but there was no cause for celebration.
We're going to make a brief announcement.
I don't think I will ever forget. I was standing by the sheriff's side
The statement is it.
when the sheriff advised the news media as to what had happened.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the death of her children.
And the gasp from that crowd when the announcement was made, I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Last night, Wells, the Union County Sheriff, and Stewart, Chief of the State Police, revealed for the first time the inner workings of their investigation. They agreed to talk to prime time, but only in the presence of the county prosecutor.
Your primary concern is
The children, always. Never anything different.
you believe her story that first night.
I believe what someone tells me until I have reason to disbelieve.
By now, we all know Susan Smith's story. Carjacker abducts her children, but releases her near a lake just outside of town. It seemed like it couldn't happen to a nicer girl. voted friendliest in her high school class, a doting mother, and above all, credible. More than most people in this town of 10,000, the sheriff had good reason to believe Susan Smith.
Sheriff, you were the godfather to her brother's children. How difficult did this make it for you to continue with your investigation?
I hurt with them, and I actually felt their feelings of despair, their devastation, and I feel with that family because of their loss.
And so they searched every way they could, by helicopter, on horseback, even underwater.
We are ground zero with an investigation.
72 hours later, no suspect, no car, no children, nothing to corroborate Susan Smith's story.
I related throwing a rock into the water. Right after it first happens, you have ripples, and once they go away, it's hard to find where the rock was from.
They didn't know how close they were.
If a small child disappears, you don't just search the woods, search the neighborhood. You interview family members.
Ernie Allen is director of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's happened 34 times in just 12 years, he says. Mothers who report the abduction of their children only to be accused of murdering them themselves. The center has developed a set of guidelines that are now being mailed to 17,000 law enforcement agencies across the country. The advice to police: always assume every child reported missing is in immediate danger. Search the child's home, even if he's disappeared somewhere else. Move quickly to give the victim's parents polygraph tests. And always conduct what police call parallel investigations.
You take the information that is provided about the abductor or the circumstances of the missing child, and you pursue it, but simultaneously, you interview family members.
Sheriff Wells had an advanced copy of those guidelines.
Not only did we work this case, but we lived this case. We ran a parallel investigation. We ran all the what ifs. If it didn't happen, as she said, how could it have happened? And we lived this case day to day just for the hopes of the children.
As he examined Susan Smith's story, the sheriff began to notice inconsistency.
For example, Smith told police she and her boys were carjacked while they waited for a red light at this intersection, and that there were no witnesses. The problem is this light turns red only when another car approaches the cross street. Smith said there were no other cars. Her story became less and less convincing, and yet she persisted.
They were crying, and my other child was crying for me. And said, he said, I want my mama. And he said, Mom, where you going? And I told him, I said, baby, I gotta go. She's gonna be okay. And I told him I loved him. I hollered I loved him.
We watched very carefully, and we would carefully analyze those images.
What would you look for?
Mannerisms, body language, the way things are phrased, what points a person voluntarily chooses to bring up.
In another case in Florida last month, it was the way she phrased things that caught Pauline Zile. She went on television in a tearful plea for her 7-year-old daughter, Christina.
Christina, get home too.
She disappeared, the mother claimed, while they visited a flea market.
One of the things that I thought stood out was how she referred to her in the past tense, which immediately I thought, this is odd for a mother who's looking for her child.
Detective Sue Edwards says if you think your child is alive, you wouldn't say she was a good little girl. Zile eventually implicated her husband. Both are now charged with murder.
Sheriff, you had your suspicions, and yet you never let on that you had doubts about her story.
Suspicion's not evidence. It's not fact, and it's nothing more than that. You cannot use it in court. You cannot convict anyone with it. And I deal in evidence and fact in my day-to-day law enforcement career.
How do you know when a person is lying?
You either prove it through evidence that shows it, or you have you admit to it.
Stewart and Wells also used a lie detector. Later, it was leaked to the press that Susan Smith was having problems with the question, do you know where your sons are?
I do not deny nor confirm a story that has anything to do with a polygraph test or its results.
The inconsistencies multiplied. Smith claimed that in the hours before the carjacking, she had taken her sons shopping to the local Walmart, but nobody here remembered seeing them. She said she was carjacked on her way to this neighborhood where she planned to visit a friend, but the friend wasn't expecting her, and he wasn't even home. And what about the suspect? Although they drew a composite sketch, police have their doubts that he ever existed.
And in this day and time, I'm sad to say, the public immediately wants to think that a suspect is a stranger lurking in the shadows, a predator ready to strike. We have approximately 400 murders in South Carolina every year. 3/4 of those murders are either family members or acquaintances of the victim.
3/4.
3/4.
It's got to be very difficult to start suspecting the parent.
Well, it's not a matter of whether it's difficult or not. It's just something you have to do a thorough investigation.
What they really were trying to do is to get her to continually tell the story over and over again. And each time she tells it just a little bit different.
Philadelphia Police Chief Inspector William Bergman has perfected the technique. In the past 5 years, his department has solved 3 similar cases by wearing down the mother in a friendly way. Eventually, the suspect, as in the case of Etta Mumford, gets caught up in her own web of deceit.
We took her down to give her a polygraph, and as we were about to hook her up to the machine, she said, "I think I better talk to you," and talk about what she did with the child. She actually had cut the child up and packed the child away in a freezer, which was in the basement of her house, pushed in the corner that we had missed the first time we went through the house.
In the case of Susan Smith, it was her national television appearances last Thursday that made it clear, even to our expert in Philadelphia, that she was lying.
Did he tell you why he was taking the children?
No, sir, he did not. There was very little communication at all.
She says very little, very few details.
That's right. In fact, she's real short because she keeps saying to herself, "I've told this story so many times. I really wonder what I said before. And every time I go to talk about this, am I going to lie a little bit more?" I was watching her sitting there, her eyes started to roll and things of this nature. So I would think the law enforcement people here probably wanted her to go in here and probably wanted to get a look at her on TV, talking about the incident, see how she's reacting, see how she's talking.
She doesn't look like a killer.
She's a murderer. She's a murderer. And just like we sit here shocked, everybody who saw this on national TV saying the same thing. How could you do that? How could you say, look at the way she acted and she's a murderer?
Do you ever say to them, "We think you're lying"?
I wouldn't say so.
Why not?
I wouldn't say that to a person until I was sure.
But just hours after that final television appearance, Sheriff Wells was sure enough to bring Susan Smith to her moment of truth. And he did it in part by using a time-honored police technique, the bluff.
Primetime has learned that the sheriff took Smith to a church and told her he had proof that she was lying, and that the inconsistencies in her story would soon become public knowledge. That's when this 23-year-old mother confessed.
Susan, why did you do it? Susan, why?
She admitted that on the night of October 25th, she let her car with her babies inside roll into the lake. The Mazda and 2 tiny bodies were recovered. Sheriff Wells immediately boarded a helicopter for his next and toughest assignment of all, to tell a close friend that his nephews were dead and that their mother would be charged with murder.
The loss of 2 small children that the entire family loved, that's utter devastation, and I can feel with them and I share with them in their loss.
As for the scene of the crime, the lake is now a memorial to the children.
People go there just to see it. People from miles and miles away. Flowers are placed there on a regular basis. People that come so emotionally involved in the case want to go to some place or be with something that is associated with the case.
And everybody wants something associated with that case. So could you tell that Susan Smith was lying? Apparently I can. So, what does that lead you to believe? That leads you to believe that she had something to do with it, but then she confessed. Again, the reason why people lie is they want to cover up the truth. Cover. It's all about cover. That's the big word ever. And like again, when people say, "I swear to God," almost always next thing on their mouth's a damn lie. So she didn't see. So she said, "I swear to God," a lie would come in. That's one of the key facts when people lie. Lying is bad, so don't be lying through your teeth. Next, the parents of baby Sabrina. Were they telling the truth about what had happened to baby Sabrina, or did they lie to cover it up? Stay with us. If Susan Smith was not tough enough, why should you hear the parents of baby Sabrina? The question is, was it a lie? Did they lie or tell the truth? Here's Bob McEwen.
Come on, Sabrina. Come on, sweetie. Come over here and see Mommy. Here she goes. Come on.
Right when Marlene got pregnant, she goes, I'm so ready for this baby because I look at pictures of our family and I think we're not complete yet. So when Sabrina came along, Sabrina completed that picture of our family. She made our family whole.
Sabrina, what are you doing?
She's just happy and smiling all the time.
You're painting a picture, as far as Sabrina's concerned, of everyone's ideal baby.
She is the ideal baby. She is, and somebody out there knows that.
It said the worst that can happen to a parent is to lose a child. But Marlene and Stephen Eisenberg say they are living through something that may in fact be even worse than that.
It's like a double whammy on you. It's like a combination punch that just hits you and hits you.
Since their 5-month-old baby vanished from her crib almost 8 weeks ago, the Eisenbergs have been under a gathering cloud of suspicion, both from the public and the police.
They're asking you to believe two of the hardest things that you could ever imagine in your life. That one, that your daughter's missing, and two, that either you or your spouse had something to do with it.
And it all began here at the Eisenberg home outside Tampa. A real estate broker, Steve, was on target to win his company's sales competition. Marlene had founded a mom and me child center that meant she could spend most of her time with her own children.
There's her big brother acting silly.
The Eisenbergs say they have a lot to be thankful for as they went to bed on the Sunday night before Thanksgiving.
What was bedtime for the two of you that night?
We retired to our rooms roughly around 11.
Their 3 children, 8-year-old William, Monica, who's 4, and little Sabrina, were happy, healthy kids and sound sleepers. According to Marlene, there wasn't a peep all night.
You know your babies cry and you wake up immediately.
But on this night, from Sabrina's room, there was no such noise.
Not from any of their rooms.
They say, as usual, they woke early the next morning.
Like a regular day.
Just like a regular day.
When Marlene began to rouse the kids, it was about 6:30. She says she usually let baby Sabrina wake up by herself.
And how would she let you know she was awake?
She has these little blocks with bells, and she wakes up playing with them, and no crying, just you wake up and you hear her cooing.
But that Monday morning, from Sabrina's room, there was no sound at all.
And then, what I heard was, Marlene screaming hysterically. And I run out and check Sabrina's crib. She's not there. Marlene's hysterical. She's losing her bodily function. She's all over the carpet and the kitchen floor. I'm trying to get her to calm down. She's calling 911, hysterical.
About 6:42 that morning, the family awoke and they discovered the child missing out of the crib.
Gary Terry is with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department. From the beginning, investigators were skeptical that someone could just walk into that house and steal a baby without waking the parents, the other children, or the dog.
We've had child abduction cases like other jurisdictions around the country, but not one of this magnitude and not one of this nature, where they actually supposedly went in and took the child out.
Yet that is exactly what the Eisenberg said had happened just a few hours later in this public plea for Sabrina's safe return.
This morning, someone came into our home and took our baby Sabrina Page out of her crib and took her out of our home. And I'm begging that person to please bring our baby back to us.
You videotaped a statement begging for the return of your child. Whose idea was that?
The police. But whoever had the idea first, it was about to backfire. There were those in Tampa who would question the parents' emotions.
We all miss her and love her very much, and we need her to come home to us, please. And I'm just begging that you please bring her home to her family.
Some thought Marlene just wasn't distraught enough for a grieving mother.
May I say that you are much more emotional now than you appeared to be on that tape?
You know, first of all, the day this happened, I'm in shock. And the minute that plea was over, I completely broke down, hysterical.
The Eisenbergs' friends and neighbors in the Tampa suburb of Brandon rallied around. They tied yellow ribbons to mailboxes. They took pictures of Sabrina door to door. They prayed at candlelight vigils.
Whoever has done this, please bring Sabrina home.
But there was also increasing scrutiny. Police removed bags of evidence from their home. The family's cars were towed after being dusted for fingerprints. And with Sabrina gone for over 24 hours, there was another damaging image. Leaving their house in front of the TV cameras, the Eisenbergs say police told them to look relaxed.
And then they've said something to break the tension.
Steve and the female detective in front of him were caught on tape, apparently laughing. To many, for the father of a missing child, it didn't look good.
Did it ever cross your mind that perhaps looking relaxed and smiling or even laughing at that point was not the appropriate thing to do?
No. We followed everything that we were asked to do, and we answered every question we were asked, and we cooperated in every aspect that we could.
The Eisenbergs told investigators they routinely left their doors unlocked at night, that they never used their burglar alarm, that their dog, Brownie, was usually too friendly to bark. In fact, when a Dateline camera crew arrived this week, Brownie didn't make a sound when we came through the door.
Notice Brownie isn't barking at you guys.
Though he did bark once we'd left. And the police increased the pressure on Sabrina's parents, challenging their finances and their marriage more and more aggressively, especially the detective who questioned Marlene.
And then he just leaned across to me and said, well, you know, statistics say that it's the parents and the mother who does these things. And I said, well, I had absolutely nothing to do with this. I have no idea what Sabrina is, and I have no idea who took her.
And what went through your mind when he effectively said, we think you do?
The total disbelief. Not only is my daughter gone, but they think I had something to do with it. It's unbelievable.
The police searched the 5-square-mile area surrounding the Eisenbergs' house, sending 130 divers into the murky water, using the same dogs that located bodies in the Everglades after the Value Jet crash. They say they've followed hundreds of leads and done 1,000 interviews that found nothing.
It is not unknown for a baby of Sabrina Eisenberg's age to be abducted by a stranger, for reasons that may range from revenge to someone who simply wants a child of their own. But according to the FBI, it doesn't happen very often. In fact, in the U.S., the odds of a child being kidnapped by someone other than a family member are about 1 in 1,000.
How much more difficult does it make all of this for you that, in fact, the statistics do show that overwhelmingly abductions of children involve family members, and that when crimes are committed against children, it is more often than not the mother?
It makes it difficult, but we really can't dwell on those kind of statistics because we know every instance is unique in itself and it needs to be treated that way, and we know we need to do everything that we can as parents to bring back our daughter.
They say that's why they agreed to take lie detector tests given by the sheriff's department the same day their daughter disappeared. Steve says he passed, but that Marlene's result was inconclusive.
And they said that they were a little concerned that Marlene's were inconclusive, but that was understandable because of the amount of stress she was probably under.
Then, just a day later, his wife was asked to take a second test.
And did they tell you what the result of that test was?
Inconclusive.
We have to look at the whole picture, and in doing so, not rule anyone out.
But according to Lieutenant Greg Brown, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department will not release those test results.
Do you believe that the tests ruled out the parents as suspects?
No one has been ruled out as a suspect at this time.
Do you feel that they believe you are suspect?
I think they believe everybody's a suspect.
You feel that they believe you are the suspect?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't expect them to be charged based on what we know now.
For their part, the Eisenbergs have hired Tampa lawyer Barry Cohen, who arranged for them to take another lie detector test, which he says they both passed with flying colors.
The police claim the attorney also is refusing to let them do a formal interview with Sabrina's parents.
Mr. Cohen has indicated that he will not allow them to speak to us until we turn over all memos, tapes, reports, things of that sort.
But Cohen insists his clients have already done as many as a dozen police interviews, providing information he says he now fears could be distorted and used against them.
God forbid, if they ever do have to face a jury of their peers, if the police are hell-bent on making this a case, I want the information that comes from them preserved, the integrity of it preserved.
Is it naive of people to say, if my child were dead or if my child were missing, I'd be open to anything. I'd tell the police anything they wanted. I wouldn't need a lawyer.
Well, we have told the police
everything they wanted, so I believe it is naive to a certain extent, because to me that's saying that they believe it'll never happen to them. And we used to be just like that.
like that too.
Steve and Marlene Eisenberg admit that since the case of Susan Smith,
I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't do anything but think about it.
who lied about the disappearance of her children, not everyone will believe them. They say that's why there's really only one thing that matters now.
And that's why we're here doing these things, to get her picture all over the place, so everybody can see her. We know she's out there.
We know she's out there, and we know she's coming home.
Because whoever took her can't keep her. She belongs with us.
And she does. But now that you've heard Baby Sabrina and Susan Smith, coming up, we showed you this story last season. You saw my reaction to the story on Throwback Thursday, but sorry. It's a story about a child who was gone missing, but it took one man to fess up to what happened to a detective. Was this person telling the truth, or was he lying? It's a story like from the town where Johnny something went. We'll have that story after the break. Stay with us. Last season and on Throwback Thursday, we showed you Jill Cuttrell. A story about Jill Cuttrell. She disappeared for over 2.5 years. For over 3 decades ago. After that happened. But there is people out there who deny, who had some involvement, had no involvement in it. Until one person came forward and told the truth. Do you believe he was telling the truth? Or do you believe there was another person there who lied to cover his own ass? Here's Molly Safer.
See if we can't do something else for you then.
Then this private investigator, who'd become obsessed with the case, got a confession. This man admitted he'd been involved in the girl's abduction and had held her while, he said, this man molested her. Neither was arrested. Both are walking the streets. Norfolk, Nebraska is best known as Johnny Carson's hometown. Beyond that, it's a sleepy place in the middle of cornfields and cow pastures. A nice place to grow up. A nice place for kids. Jill Cuttrell was one of the kids growing up in Norfolk. This home movie of her was made a year before she disappeared. Though her parents were divorced, she seemed a perfectly happy little girl. It was the summer of '87. 9-year-old Jill Cuttrell was spending the summer holiday with her father and her stepmother in this basement apartment of this building called McNeely House. The routine was this. The Cuttrells would leave for work about 6 a.m., Jill would do the dishes, and then walk the 4.5 blocks to a babysitter's where she would spend the day. August 13th was typical. The Cuttrells left for work about 6 a.m., Jill did her chores, and then apparently left the house and was never seen again. A massive search was organized, the FBI was brought in, but nothing. Not a trace of her was found. But 3 months later, at a remote area called Wood Duck, police got their first break. A hunter in this wildlife preserve stumbled across the clothes she was wearing the day she vanished. Purple shirt, white sneakers, blue jeans, and her underwear. The police again launched a massive search. The FBI was brought in. They brought in special dogs trained to find bodies, but nothing was found. At this point, the police had interviewed 600 people and still did not have a lead. 4 months later, 7 months after Jill disappeared, the Norfolk police started questioning Kermit Crumroy Baumgartner, a 61-year-old man, twice divorced, with 9 children. He was living on the second floor of Joe's apartment house at the time Joe disappeared. The investigation of Kermit soon led police to David Phelps, a 24-year-old who'd briefly shared Kermit's apartment. They were lovers. Both men had a history of child molestation. David's sister, Gail Peterson, told police about her brother's problem, specifically about one incident in Arkansas.
David was sent down to live with me when I was down there, and I lived with a girl who had a 4-year-old daughter. And sometime during the night, he crawled into bed with her, and the little girl told her mother the next day, and then they came and told me about it.
Did you confront him?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
He didn't deny it. The only thing he had to say was he did it because he wanted to feel good.
How old was he then?
16.
Gail was concerned that her brother might be involved in Joe's disappearance. The police investigation seemed to be going nowhere, so she voiced her concerns to Jill's mother, Joyce Cutchell. What did you do with that information?
I called my investigator, my private investigator.
It was Roy Stevens.
Roy Stevens.
Roy Stevens, a private investigator who specializes in missing children, entered the case 5 days after Jill disappeared. He admits he became obsessed with it, worked without salary. When he questioned David Phelps, Phelps implicated Kermit, but offered nothing concrete. On January 4th, 1989, a year and a half after Joe disappeared, Stevens tried to bring the case to a head. He took Phelps out to Wood Duck, to a spot near where Joe's clothing was found. After an hour and a half of wandering around, Stevens says, Phelps began to break.
And he said, Roy, he goes, it's time to get this off my chest. I need to start telling you what happened.
Stevens says that David Phelps then confessed that he was involved in Joe's disappearance. Stevens took him to the Econo Lodge Motel in Norfolk, to room 115, where a local television crew was waiting. Phelps confessed again, this time on camera. He told Marcia Cady from Channel 3 Omaha that on the day Jill disappeared, he and Jill got into a car with Kermit, who drove them out to Wood Duck.
Jill got really nervous and everything. Kermit got her out of the car. He put his left hand over her mouth and shoved her backwards. And Kermit kept his hand on her mouth, started fondling her stuff. I got real nervous and I says, hey, let's get the hell out of here, you know. And Kermit says, well, then you take the car and you go back town, I'll get back later. And I left.
You didn't molest Jill.
I became very aroused when she was standing against me. The temptation was there, but I was more scared. I just wanted to get out of there.
You never touched her sexually?
No.
Who took her clothes off?
Kermit's the one that got her pants off.
Roy Stevens, the private investigator, was present during the Channel 3 taping and felt moved to ask David,
have I or anybody else threatened you by not making these comments?
No.
Police then picked up Phelps and brought him in for questioning.
He again repeated almost verbatim the exact same story that he gave to me. Only he went further in making the statement that Jill was not supposed to die, that it was an accident.
But when David Phelps' attorney showed up, he recanted the confession. Norfolk Police Chief Bill Meisner and County Attorney Richard Crepola felt that without Jill's body, they had no case.
He claimed that he had been under duress and that everything that he had said because of that duress.
Police released him that night and have not spoken to him since. But the next day, Phelps' sister Gail went to talk to him. She was furious and raised her hand as if to strike him.
I said, you little son of a bitch, after everything we've been through, and you say you're not going to talk to me. And he looked at me and said he was going to have me arrested for assault. And I said, fine, you go right ahead. That sounds real good coming out of a rapist and a murderer.
That's what you said.
And that's what I said.
And what did he say?
He looked at me and he had very cold eyes, very dead eyes, and he said, I did not confess to rape and murder. I confessed to kidnapping and molestation.
Channel 3 broadcast a brief excerpt of the confession, but did not name Phelps and disguise his face and his voice. A few days later, David Phelps left Norfolk, Nebraska. Kermit Baumgarten stayed a week or so longer, then he too left town. David, who got married and had a baby daughter, kept moving around. Close friends and family did not know their whereabouts. We managed to trace them to a cheap motel in Southern California.
Hi, David. David Phelps.
Who are you?
I'm Morley Safer, CBS, 60 Minutes.
So?
I would like to talk to you.
About what?
I think you know what we want to talk about. I'd like to clear the air on this thing, on the whole thing. You know.
I think what you need to do, if you want to talk to anybody, you go talk to David Dahman in Norfolk first.
Who's that?
My attorney, David Dahman, out of Norfolk, Nebraska.
Hi, you Kim? Yes. Hi, Kim. How are you? David. David?
We brought David's sister Gail along, hoping she could convince him to talk.
David, let me talk to you a minute.
After a few minutes, David agreed to talk to Gail, and a few minutes later came out again, obviously upset that we'd found him. In his confession, he'd said that he and Kermit had been drinking heavily the night before Jill disappeared. But here, he said he was sober. His own lawyer confirms the first version.
The circumstantial evidence here is this. This is a young man who was in the wrong place, using alcohol at the wrong time, who has a criminal record, who is himself of limited capacity.
David Domina is David Phelps' attorney. Domina is one of Nebraska's most prominent lawyers. He agreed to be interviewed only after we showed him Phelps' entire confession.
What he didn't say on the tape and what his behavior suggested was, I think, that there may have been fear and intimidation involved.
He has endangered my life because of Stevens. He has threatened me more than once to kill me.
Threatened you?
Yeah. Including the day we talked.
Why did you sit down and talk to him?
That's, like I said, I'm not going any further than that, but you've now endangered my safety and my family.
Roy Stevens continued to deny any threat had been made. But quite suddenly, he made a remarkable confession to us. For the first time, he admitted he'd become so frustrated with lack of progress that he pulled a gun that day out at Wood Duck and fired a shot in the air.
He immediately turned around and looked at me, and I still was holding the gun straight up in the air. I then brought it down and put it away. His very first statement after that was going to have a cigarette.
In making the admission that he'd threatened Phelps with a gun, Stevens also admitted his own criminal record, a burglary he'd committed 13 years before. As a convicted felon, he could not be licensed as a private investigator, so he lied on his application.
In going after him so hard, now, ultimately, you paid a very heavy price, right?
It cost me my career. But it's a small price to pay. I was a private investigator up until yesterday. I turned my license in.
Why did you pull the gun? Didn't you know that act could make anything that he then said subsequently invalid as evidence?
I'm not so sure it makes it totally invalid. I'm not a cop. I'm just an ordinary citizen.
Because Stevens threatened Phelps, it may well be that Phelps did concoct a confession to get away from Stevens. Except for one quite chilling part of that confession, though police had never issued a description of Jill's underwear, Phelps was able to describe it.
If I remember right, like white underwear, and I had these little, circular designs on them, like little swirls and stuff on them.
Was that considered to have, at the time, as breaking the case?
It was looked at.
It's a very bureaucratic answer.
Well,
What'd you think?
It's something we looked at. It's not something that we passed over. It's not something that we missed. That was part of our consideration in conducting our follow-up investigation.
That included a brief questioning of Kermit Baumgartner last January, but police have not talked to him since. We found him living in a Star Hotel, a boarding house in Northern California.
Kermit, hi, how are you? I'm Morley Saper from CBS. I want to talk to you about Norfolk. And David Phelps. And what you may remember about Jill Cutchell.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know, because I wasn't involved in it. No way with her.
Do you think David assaulted her?
I don't know.
Do you have a record for molesting children?
No, not that I know of.
Did you ever molest children?
No. Yes, I did too. I got picked up in Nebraska. I had a kid back there. He was 16 years old.
You were picked up by police in Nebraska?
I went to jail for a year. We got to do this on the street, Pete.
You want to go up and do it too?
No, I don't want to go to my room. The landlord throw me out.
You ever been to Wood Duck?
Not to the best of my knowledge, no.
Ever?
I think he had a friend one time, and it was another friend's car. We drove someplace out that way, but never with my car.
You molested your own kids, didn't you?
I didn't, but that's what the old lady, ex-old lady tried to prove.
Your former wife?
Yeah.
Well, the kids say that you did.
I did not.
Did you ever talk about little girls? You and David?
One time, that's what I told that private investigator.
Yeah?
But, I told him what David Phelps told me that one day. He said, I'd like to get in her pants, is what he told me.
Talking about Jill?
That's what he told me.
I'm still trying to get to the bottom of why. Why Phelps would make up such a story about you.
I think he's trying to cover his own tracks, is what I think.
Chief Miser, what's the status of the Jill Cutchell case now?
Right now, we are in what we term to be a semi-active status, and we're waiting to see if there's any new leads that come in.
Phelps says he's been made into a scapegoat because of 2 felonies on his record and other incidents involving children.
You were talking about molestation, right?
Well,
there were incidents in your past.
Right.
You can take him out and put a bullet between his eyes. He's hurt a lot of children that he's confessed to. I just don't believe society has any use for people like that.
There's no affection left?
For my brother, yes, but for the person who did this, no. My brother's dead. The human being that was in there is dead. And now, when he looked at me with those eyes that were just blank behind there, then I think that's when he died.
He should not be on the street. He has hurt 3 other girls, 4 counting Jill. He has a baby girl at home now. He may not have to go on the street to look for a little child. He's got a 2-year-old baby girl at home. That scares the hell out of me.
Are you convinced in your own heart that he's not involved?
I'm convinced in my own heart that he is not guilty of any crime.
That wasn't the question.
That's the answer.
And it doesn't need an answer, so. In this case, who do I believe is lying, telling the truth? Well, remember, David Phelps says in his confession, he and David was drinking heavily that night. But when you look at the confession tape, he said that he molested Jill, he and David, but Kermit said it never happened. So who do you believe is telling the truth? I believe that David Phelps is telling the truth and Kermit is lying to cover David's ass. We'll be right back. Finally tonight, continuing with lying. What happens when your mom catches you lying? You got grounded or you get an ass whooping? Tonight's foul break, here's Brian L. Bukake.
you again. How'd you get this? Get behind me. I'm gonna ask you again. How'd you get this? I paid for it. With what money? Okay, I stole it. So why did you lie? I don't know. Well, since you don't know this. You're not coming out of this room for the rest of the week, and I better not hear a peep or a sound from you. And wait till your dad hear about this. He gonna be upset with you. I'm gonna ask you. Get behind me. I'm in position. I'm gonna tear that boy up. Yo, from the back. Hit it from the back. Ah, you gotta hit it harder than that. Yeah, right there, right there. Right there. I'm disappointed in you. Wait, Mom, did I do something wrong? I'm just playing a video game. I thought.
It's just what happens. How about when a teacher lies to your mom so you get an ass whooping?
I can't believe I had to leave work because this boy don't know how to act. So tell me what's going on. I'm so sorry. He just been out of control today. Like, he's been smacking people, calling people names, and throwing paper balls. He even called me the B word and told me to shut the F up. Mama, he lying. Now, why would your teacher lie? Because he don't like me. Get in the hallway now. He'll be back in a few minutes, and when he comes back, he's going to be on his best behavior for the rest of the day. I promise you that. Come here, boy. Because I can't believe I...
Well. Well. Here's one more, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Did you have anybody over here today while I was at work? No. Are you lying to me? Why would I lie? I have no reason to lie. Then why did the neighbors tell me they saw some girl leave my house? Well, Keisha came by and... Mama, I told you about that line. I told you. You gonna learn today. Man, Mama! Did you have anybody over here today while I was at work?
Now, if he had told the truth, he would have gotten that he would have gotten a whooping. And gotten grounded. Alright, bonus, and we'll wrap it up.
Lying. That's not fair. You lied.
You should be in bed now.
What I tell you about that lying? That's not fair. You lie all the time. No, I do not. When a bill collector call, I gotta answer the phone and tell them that you're not here. When we go out to eat, you say that I'm 10 when I'm really 13. You lied about the tooth fairy, and you lied about Santa Claus. Look, I'm grown. I can lie. But if I catch you lying, you're gonna be lying in a bed full of belt marks. Play with me and find out.
Ooh.
What I tell you about that lying?
Wow. Yikes. Alright, coming up on Wednesday, continuing with our Dishonesty in America. Why people lie, cheat, and steal. We'll look at cheating and stealing, both at the same time. But don't you worry, we're going to finish off with the lying on Friday. With clips from the principal's office and with some more clips with a recap of what to look for in a liar, this and this. It's just basically a recap in case you missed Monday, so you'll get to see how it goes along. That's Game Break for this Monday going to Tuesday. We'll see you in Game Break Wednesday as we continue Dishonesty in America. For all of us here at YouTube, stop bullying, speak of concentration, not strength. Have a good night.